Hello, everybody. Good evening. And then we'll talk. Katrina, thank you so much for being here and this magnificent translation. So I'll start reading. We read the Portuguese without any, you don't need to hear the simultaneous translation because I'll read in Portuguese just so we get a sense for those who don't speak Portuguese. So a very short passage from chapter 1. Then Katrina will read it in English, and then Francisco will read from a passage from chapter 5, and then Katrina will read it in English. So there is no simultaneous translation while we're doing this reading. And then after that, for those who can't speak English, there will be a simultaneous translation from Portuguese into English, because Katrina is mainly going to speak in English, or she might quote something, but anyway, so let's start.
And just to add in, thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes,
Obrigadíssima. But I just wanted to say, if you're following along in the books, we're reading from the first paragraph and then chapter 5, Piaimã. So if you have the new directions, it's on page 33, the passage. And if it's the Fitzcarraldo, it's on page 57.
Thank you. And I'll be reading from a version of Companhia das Letras, published in 2016, Katrina? Yeah? Okay. Right, okay. No fundo do Mato Virgem nasceu Macunaíma, herói da nossa gente. Era preto retinto e filho do medo da noite. Houve um momento em que o silêncio foi tão grande, escutando o murmurejo do Uraricoera, que a Índia Tapanhumas pariu uma criança feia. Essa criança é que chamaram de Macunaíma. Já na meninice fez coisas sarapantá. De primeiro passou mais de 6 anos não falando. Se o incitavam a falar, exclamava: "Ai, que preguiça!"
In the depths of the virgin forest was born Macunaíma, hero of our people. He was jet black and sunned to fear of the night. There came a moment when the silence grew so great listening to the murmuring Hiurariquera that the native Tapanumas woman birthed an ugly child. That child is the one they called Macunaíma. Even as a boy, he did bewildering things. First off, he went more than 6 years without talking. If they coaxed him to talk, he'd holler, "Ah, just so lazy," and not a word more.
And now I'll read from the 5th chapter in Portuguese. E estava lindíssimo na sol da Lapa, os 3 manos, um loiro, um vermelho, outro negro, de pé bem erguidos e nus. Todos os seres do mato espiavam, assombrados. O jacareúna, o jacaretinga, o jacareaçu, o jacaré-ururau, de papo amarelo, todos esses jacarés botaram os olhos de rochedo para fora da água. Nos ramos das ingazeiras, das aningas, das mamoranas, das embaúbas, dos catauaris, da beira-rio, o macaco prego, o macaco de cheiro, o guariba, o bugio, o coatá, o barrigudo, o coxio, o cairara, todos os 40 macacos do Brasil, todos, espiavam babando de inveja. E os sabiás, o sabiá-sica, o sabiá-poca, o sabiá-una, o sabiá-piranga, o sabiá-gongá, que quando come não me dá, o sabiá-barranco, o sabiá-tropeiro, o sabiá-laranjeira, o sabiá-gute, todos esses ficaram pasmos, esqueceram de acabar o trinado, vozeando com eloquência. Macunaíma teve ódio, botou as mãos nas ancas e gritou para a natureza: "Nunca viu, não?" Então, os seres naturais debandaram vivendo e os 3 manos seguiram caminho outra vez. Porém, entrando nas terras do Igarapé Tietê, aonde o Bourbon vogava e a moeda tradicional não era mais cacau, em vez, chamava arame, contos, contecos, 1000 réis, borós, tostão, 200 réis, 500 réis, 50 paus, 90 bagarotes e pelegas, cobres, xenxens, caraminguás, telos, bicos de coruja, maçuni, bolada, calcário, gimbra, siridó, bicha e pataraco. Assim, aonde até liga para meia, ninguém comprava nem por 20.000 cacaus. Macunaíma ficou muito contrariado. Ter de trabucar, ele, herói, murmurou desolado: "Ai, que preguiça!" Resolveu abandonar a empresa, voltando para os pagos de que era imperador.
And it was the loveliest sight under the sun on that rock, the 3 brothers, one blonde, one red, another black, standing up tall and naked, All the creatures of the forest gaped in awe. The black alligator, the little white-bellied alligator, the great big alligator, the ururao alligator with the big yellow snout, all them gators poked their craggy eyes out the water. In the branches of the ingas, the aningas, the mamoranas, the imbaubas, the catuaris growing along the riverbank, the capuchin monkey, the squirrel monkey, the guariba howler, the bugio howler, the spider monkey, the woolly monkey, the bearded saki, the tufted kairara, all the 40 monkeys of Brazil, all of them gaped drooling with envy. And the sabia song thrushes, the sabia sika, the sabia poca, the sabia una, the sabia piranga, the sabia gonga that never shares its food, the ravine sabia, the minor sabia, the orange tree sabia, the gum tree sabia, all were wonderstruck and forgot to finish the warbling, eloquently clamoring on. Macunaíma was furious. He put his hands on his hips and hollered at nature, "Ain't nothing to see here." And so the natural creatures scattered back to living, and the three brothers went on their way once more. However, they were entering the lands of the Igarapé Chiete, where bourbon coffee reigned and the traditional currency was no longer cacao, but instead was called coin, contos, clackers, bits, tokens, shillings, 2 pence, 10 cents, 50 bucks, 90 clams in cash, coppers, pennies, loot, greenbacks, gravy, marbles, moolah, dough, vouchers, peanuts, frog smackaroos, and the like, where you couldn't even get a pair of sock garters for 2,000 cacao beans. Macunaíma was very upset. He'd have to bust his tail. Him, the hero. He murmured despondently, "Ah, just so lazy." He decided to abandon the whole enterprise, heading back to his native lands where he was emperor.